All right, guys, how's everyone doing?
All
right.
Got that post-lunch slow down.
Man, brutal. But honestly, I'm really happy to be here, guys. This is my third Breakpoint. First time I ever came to Breakpoint was in 2021. I bought a ticket, and I sat in the audience, and I was here to meet a lot of my friends that I had made on a network called Solana. I was, early to the NFT scene, helped start MonkeyDAO, and a lot of the people, that I had gotten to know over the time, they were just, PFPs on the internet. But as soon as I got to Breakpoint, I realized there's real people behind the JPEGs, and this is a real movement, just as much as it is technological. There's a whole cultural and personal side to the blockchain that I think we'll touch on today as well. So really, my journey on Solana began when I, like many people in the audience, I began to get conviction when I used the chain for the first time. It was a vastly different UX. It felt like going from broadband to fiber optic, literally. The first time I ever interacted with the Solana blockchain, I knew it was radically different from anything I had ever used in my life. And meeting Logan, my co-founder at Frictionless Capital, we started doing research from first principles, contrasting chains, across various metrics, and time again, we found all roads led to Solana. We couldn't disprove the Solana thesis. Logan did 100 podcasts with top CTOs and, kind of chief protocol architects, and we kept coming back to Solana. So today, I'm joined by Dan. Really excited to be having this chat, kind of around past, present, and future of Solana, but I'll let him introduce himself.
All right. My name's Dan Albert. I'm serving as Executive Director for Solana Foundation. I have been working on the Solana project for close to 5 years. My journey at Solana actually started very early on in the pre-mainnet days. My background is actually in electrical engineering and radio engineering, and I was working with one of the technical co-founders of Solana at Qualcomm at the time, many years ago. And he took me out to lunch one day, and he said, "Hey, I've got this friend Anatoly, and he's got this wild idea for a next generation blockchain project. No idea if it's going to pan out, but we're looking for a couple people, hiring some folks we trust. We've got this company. It's called Solana Labs. What do you think? Let's give it a shot." And kind of sold me on the early vision. This was in the days where we're still telling people like, "Hey, there's this idea. It's called proof of history. There's this white paper, but there's not a whole lot more at the time." So I joined Solana Labs back then, very early 2019. So I worked as one of the early engineers on the tech side at Solana Labs for the first couple years. Built the first validators, helped launch mainnet with the support of our early validator community. I think there were about 20, maybe 30 validators when we launched in March of 2020. 3.5 years later, it's really incredible to see. I transitioned over and have been heading up sort of technical and network operations on behalf of Solana Foundation since 2021. Obviously, the Solana community has really grown and evolved since then, and Foundation is sort of helping to enable and coordinate and empower our community has done a lot to try to evolve and grow and change in scope and focus accordingly. So it's just been a really great journey to see everybody here in this sort of, the network has matured, the tech has matured, but most importantly, like the community and the products and the kind of things people have built and are now building and are envisioning to build next on Solana. It's just really incredible and inspiring to see that coming, from the community, from the outside, building on top of what we started. So thank you.
Absolutely. And, we've heard some incredible technical talks, including Dan's early on Fire Dancer. I think, there's really two sides of blockchain. There's the technical optimizations, and there's also the social layer, right? Which is often, forgotten, but not by me. I think really the developer side and the user side, building that durable social layer of people that show up every single day on a blockchain and use it, even when there's no more grants, even when markets are down, is super underrated. And I think, frankly, building that durable social layer is just as hard or harder than optimizing for the correct tech. And I think Solana is very unique in that it's been able to build that durable social layer. My first question is around kind of, you were there when the scriptures were written. How do you feel about, maybe some things that Solana's done differently? Building, was that in the ethos of Solana from the first day? What has Solana done differently that I think other chains can learn from?
Yeah, I think the real kind of unique thing that Solana has done differently is always act on this thesis that the blockchain itself needs to be able to scale, right? And we can talk ad nauseum, and people can argue ad nauseum about what scale for blockchain looks like. We don't have to dig into the tech now, but what that has led to has been like this sort of unified technical thesis that you can build fast, consumer-ready applications right here on this infrastructure. And to build this high-performance blockchain, everything that we've built, it's different than the kind of, I'll say, old, legacy blockchains, like the programming model. The developer experience is different. The kind of tools that are required, they're quite different. And as such, we had this meme early on, of chewing glass, right? Yeah. Like building an app on Solana is like chewing glass. Now, I don't think it's quite so hard these days, but the way you think about structuring your program is different. The way we do debugging, the blockchain itself, to pull this off, to do this sort of parallel processing, multi-core approach, as Anatoly described earlier, this sort of multi-core approach to blockchain, it's hard. We're right at the cutting edge of distributed systems engineering and decentralized ledger tech. And as such, it has always, and at least early on, only attracted high conviction builders, right? People who see this isn't just the hype, this is real tech, and I'm willing to put in the time and slog through, the glass chewing of the developer experience. Yeah. To kind of launch a product of my dreams because there's nowhere else to do it. This is the best place to do it. And a lot of people, like, the network itself has gone trial by fire. Things are like super stable these days. We've had 100% uptime since early this year. And everyone who's kind of gone through this, like these crucible moments, right? When the network was having challenges last year, obviously the market has been a wild ride for those that have been around. And there's really this sense of like camaraderie of like, we've been through all this hard stuff on the tech, we've been through all this hard stuff on the market, and it's formed this incredible like conviction and cohesion amongst the community that stuck with us and stuck with everybody kind of through it all.
Absolutely, and I think there's been no shortage of memes either. 75 devs. I think the number's a little bit higher than that today, but in all honesty, Solana's story is one of a chain that's just unbroken. I mean, every black swan possible has been thrown at the chain, and I think in my conversations with investors, especially the more kind of experienced ones that have been through multiple cycles, they're looking for tech that can go the distance, not only from a scalability perspective, they're also looking at chains that have gone through those motions, exactly what Dan just said around a crucible moment. Ethereum had their moment in 2018. Bitcoin's had multiple cycles where everyone's saying Bitcoin's going to go away. Is this the last, dump for Bitcoin or whatever? But truly, it's in those moments where the community rallies together, similar to kind of what we saw in December of 2022. I was in a Twitter Spaces with over 1,000 community members. We were ready to ride this to zero. Like, I don't know any other chain apart from Bitcoin and Ethereum that has a community that's that dedicated. And frankly, like I said, it's very hard to replicate, and in some ways, Solana caught lightning in a bottle. So really, my next question is around, I guess, taking us to the present. Solana's passed the trial by fire. The network's stronger. It's more robust than ever. The community is locked in. It feels a little bit like there's a new era starting on Solana. Call it Solana 2.0, whatever narrative we need to come up with. We need to decide on something. But it feels like there's a new era for the network starting. How do you think about that?
Yeah, I really kind of echo that sentiment. And a lot of it, I think, is really driven by like our community of builders, right? Like, we honor the builders, they honor one another, kind of going through this together. And what I think that has resulted, which is one of, I think, these catalysts for Solana 2.0 or whatever you might call it, is like this sense of community ownership, right? Like, people come to Solana for the tech for their own reasons, right? They realize, like, this is where I want to be, and I'm here for defensible reasons that this is the thing that's going to scale. And so we have, like, in some areas, I'll say almost like this kind of cultish areas of the community that are like Solana diehards, not because they're just watching the markets day by day, but they realize, like, this is where I want to be. This is where I can build the killer app. This is where I can build my platform that's going to change the world or bring an entire country online. And like, it's hard to quantify, right? It's hard to put a label, and it's like, okay, this is the 2.0 moment. But we are seeing like this resurgence in DeFi and staking tokens and things that, like, the Jito guys were talking about, with the upcoming, what now testnet, but upcoming mainnet launch of Firedancer. I think that really moves the network forward, but also signals like this broader evolution. Yes, we've been through the black swan. Solana is here to stay, and we are, putting a line in the sand that it's like, this network is mature, this network is robust,
Yep.
And people are looking to build, like, not just the next generation of the same kind of crypto apps that we've been seeing, but new kind of consumer apps that are only possible on Solana. You can't do this on legacy systems. You can't do it on any other blockchain system.
Absolutely. And honestly, as an early stage investor in this space, it's so exciting to see emergent categories of product, right? And things that have never been done before. Another Uniswap on Solana is somewhat interesting, but I think what's really interesting is the bleeding edge of really the only possible on Solana memes, right? Any application that literally can only exist on Solana today, I think that's where we're going to see the most excitement and just emergent kind of adoption and excitement around it. And really, that kind of takes me to the next point naturally, which is just this whole category of applications, right? Maybe it's DePIN, maybe it's leveraging Solana's unique low latency or high throughput, or potentially even compressed NFTs. How do you feel about that whole category when you look at, for example, compressed NFTs today? 1 billion NFTs minted for $100 or $1,000. These are mainstream ready unit economics, right? This is something that's as cheap as sending an email or using MailChimp, or sometimes even cheaper than MailChimp. I was looking at it. Mm-hmm. It's insane. So really, what does this mean for potential enterprise partners or for startups that are looking to tie into Solana's tech? Kind of, how do you feel about only possible on Solana?
Yeah, I think the only possible on Solana, it was a great meme, but there's like a lot of meat to it. So props to Mert, wherever he is, for kind of getting that kicked off on Twitter. And I think we in the community have really kind of picked up on that. But I think it's true. There are a lot of things that are only possible on Solana. DePIN is a great example of this. We heard earlier from Noah, from the Helium Foundation, right? Decentralized physical infrastructure networks. People can bootstrap physical networks, whether that is farming out idle CPU time. Helium bootstrapped an entire distributed IoT and 5G mobile network, incentivizing people to run hotspots in their car. HiveMapper does streaming token payments for people who are mapping streets as they're driving. So this is like a competition. It's a competitor to effectively Google Maps, right? Street View. How often can Google refresh their street view map, right? If there's damage to a road, you're not going to see that on Street View. You're not going to know that by looking at your travel routing, if a road was just damaged a week ago. But if there's Uber drivers and Lyft drivers or people that are already driving and have a HiveMapper dash cam because they have an incentive to drive around and keep the most up-to-date maps powered by Solana, all of a sudden you've got real sort of like a real use case that adds value to more people, right? Say, oh shit, there's a pothole there that there wasn't yesterday, or here's the update on whatever the road construction or something like that. So this is like a completely non-speculative use case, right? This is pure utilitarian. And because Solana is so fast and so cheap, powered by, with what we've done with the network and what we have heard about with state compression, to enable these kind of use cases, it takes the economic friction in both time and gas costs, like we've seen on networks like Ethereum, or even just trying to actually do a peer-to-peer transaction on Bitcoin. It takes all of that away. So now people can just focus on what can I do if I can transfer value or tokens or owned data in whatever form across the world at any time. And so that's really what we're starting to see. And a second kind of big example is, we talk a lot about payments, right? So we've got Solana Pay, all the vending machines here, all the coffee stands here are all powered by Solana Pay. Tap to pay with USDC, it's just as fast, there's no cost. It's just as fast as doing Apple Pay, or you tap a credit card and you get a confirmation just like that.
It's incredible. I mean, honestly, just to double click on DePIN, everyone's asking me all the time, Legend, what's next? What's the next big wave? I think, honestly, DePIN as a category is incredibly exciting. It enables a new period of capital formation. It's structurally the lowest cost of capital for anyone trying to bootstrap a network. You can start literally any network, incentivize new supply coming online, and you can get the flywheel effect going almost immediately. It's incredible. When I chat with DePIN founders, a lot of them kind of go the route of starting on a legacy blockchain like Ethereum, and then pretty quickly they find out it doesn't have the throughput or the low latency that they need, and then they often try to build their own blockchain after that, which is not a task I'd wish on my worst enemy. It's extremely complex and just so many moving parts to integrate vertically like that. And then finally, they land on Solana. And I think there's been a total trend of DePIN projects coming to Sol and just realizing, look, this is ready out of the box to run absolutely everything I need. There's local fee markets. I'm not going to get my DePIN network gas fees bid up by people trading apes at the same time, which is a whole different conversation. But I think more generally, Solana has positioned itself as kind of the runway that's ready to go. You want to take your plane off or land it, it's ready to go. And a lot of other blockchains, it feels like they're still optimizing and still trying to build the kind of the runway while they're landing, which is just not ideal. So really, I mean, taking a step back and chatting with a lot of investors as well, a lot of people, try to put analogies on different blockchains. They say, this blockchain is like the X of Y. Recently, there was a podcast, people kind of described maybe Ethereum and the EVM landscape kind of as Android, and Solana more as kind of the Apple. And you have a long career in engineering, product. You've been at Solana since day one. First of all, how do you feel about the analogy? But more broadly, kind of what's Solana's end state? It's an integrated chain. Mm-hmm. It's solving for a completely different set of factors and a completely different approach than all other chains in the industry. So what's your take?
Yeah, I think the analogy to say ETH is the Android of L1s and Solana is the Apple or the iPhone. I mean, it's as good of an analogy as we can get with consumer products that people can relate to. And this is specifically around sort of, I think, references like the modular versus monolithic argument, right? A lot of folks in the Ethereum space and sort of in the app chain L2 space right now take a very modular approach, right? Which is how Android works, right? You've got the Android software is maintained by this group of people. Different people can build the phone itself. You slap them together. And it usually works just fine. I mean, there's a lot of great Android phones out there. There's no knock on them. But the approach can lead to some friction as you bridge different types of infrastructure, right? On the iPhone, Apple's model has always been, we make the hardware and we make the software, and therefore, because it's the same company, you are guaranteed seamless integration every single time. You just worry about building your app. You just worry about using your app, right? And this is sort of, I think one thing that's maybe a little underappreciated in Solana, right? We've been talking about local fee markets a lot. It's a very exciting, tech development. It's an exciting economic development, but it actually does enable an effective, economic and performance modularity on Solana's monolithic blockchain, right? Solana, the global state machine, you don't need to worry about your infrastructure anymore. You don't need to worry about running your own blockchain. I mean, it's underappreciated how much work it is. Like in the 90s, when broadband was first being rolled out, a lot of companies, IT companies, tech companies, or non-tech companies, they would run their own fiber, right? They would build their own server rooms, and you have the huge department of people just to maintain your server, not because that's your business, right? Your business is your banking, or you're a healthcare company, or something else. And the amount of overhead to set up your own custom infrastructure just so you can plug into what was at the time a more disjointed internet was a huge cost, just so that you could enable your business, right? Now, if you want to run a business, you don't think, I'm an internet company, therefore I need to do this. Every company is an internet company. Everyone has a web page. Everyone has social media. Everyone has email and your domain name, right? You don't run your own stuff, right? You just say, oh, we've got services for that. The internet just works. So Solana takes care of this, just works. And with local fees, it does allow this sort of breakup of the cost to run and the performance of running this app that I wrote and that app that you wrote are going to be completely non-overlapping. Just like your internet traffic and my internet traffic, you don't ever worry about these things kind of combining, right?
No, it's incredible. And I think there's no better example to what kind of Dan just alluded to than the day Mad Lads minted on 420. It was an incredible time because it was literally Helium's migration at the same time as the Mad Lads mint, while Pyth was doing millions of transactions with their Oracle. So it's kind of like, is there a better stress test of the network than that? I don't know. It was literally tens of millions of requests getting spammed at the same time, and fees remained affordable for everyone. And I think historically, people have looked at the Ethereums of the world and said, look, you have to resort to, sharding or maybe a layer 3 or even a layer 2 for that kind of functionality, when Solana is doing everything on the base layer. So it's kind of like maybe the best solution is a little bit simpler than people first envisioned. And I think it's extremely underrated. Also, the serverless design that Dan just described of like not having to run your own infrastructure. You can count on Solana, right? The runway is there. The lights are blinking. The plane just needs to take off. And the product and the founders, they can focus on what they're good at, which is building the plane and steering it in the right direction. And I think that's where Solana's positioned itself uniquely.
Yeah, right time. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for coming through, guys.